rise. The president implements a new travel ban as North Korea calls his language on Twitter a declaration of war. Healthcare. As Republicans scramble for votes, where does the GOP's attempt to repeal and replace Obamacare stand? We're at the Capitol. The joy of love. A letter is sent to the Holy Father asking him to clarify parts of this document. Vatican correspondent Juliet Lindley breaks it down. And the first American man declared blessed.
Blessed Stanley Rother, pray for us.
Father Stanley Rother of Oklahoma is one step away from sainthood. On EWTN News Nightly for Monday, September 25th, 2017. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. North Korea's top diplomat accuses President Trump of declaring war. Kim Jong-un responded to a tweet from the president warning that North Korea's leader, quote, won't be around much longer. The president has added North Korea to a new travel ban list. Correspondent Wyatt Goolsby reports today from the White House. Good evening, Wyatt.
Good evening, Lauren. The president says they're adding North Korea as part of the new order that temporarily bans visitors to the U.S. because Pyongyang does not cooperate with the United States government in any respect. Many see the move to add North Korea as largely symbolic as the U.S. tries to curb the rogue nation's nuclear program.
North Korea's foreign minister is firing back against President Trump.
This is clearly a declaration of war.
The country's top diplomat reacting to the president's tweet over the weekend, saying if North Korea's foreign minister echoes the thoughts of Little Rocket Man, they might not be around much longer.
We will have every right to make countermeasures, including the right to shoot down the United States strategic bombers, even when they're not yet inside the airspace border of our country.
White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders dismisses the North Korean rhetoric.
We've not declared war on North Korea, and frankly, the suggestion of that is absurd. Our goal is still the same. We continue to seek the peaceful denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. That's our focus, doing that through both the most maximum economic and diplomatic pressures as possible at this point.
North Korea is one of 8 countries the president is including in his new travel ban. Starting October 18th, new restrictions will also be in place for some citizens of Chad, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria, Yemen, and Venezuela. Administration officials say the new measures are required to keep the nation safe.
The travel ban, the tougher, the better.
Mr. Trump's previous travel ban expired Sunday. Under that order, many nationals from 6 Muslim-majority countries were banned from coming into the U.S. This Iranian woman says her relatives who live in the U.S. are afraid to visit Iran because they worry they will not be able to get back to America. Other groups in the U.S., like the ACLU, are firmly against the new restrictions, tweeting, "Trump just released Muslim Ban 3.0 late on a Sunday night. Tell @RealDonaldTrump that you will not be distracted."
The Supreme Court has canceled arguments that were set for October 10th in the dispute over the president's previous travel ban. The court had been ready to hear arguments about the legality of that ban, which expired Sunday and was replaced by the president's new proclamation. Lauren?
Wyatt, the American bishops have long advocated for migrants and refugees. Have they responded to this travel ban?
Well, the bishops have not yet responded to this new order, Lauren, but we know that the bishops have been critical in the past. In January, Bishop Joe Vasquez of Austin, Texas, denounced the administration's move to cut the number of refugees coming into the country, which was part of the last travel ban. Many of the bishops are worried broad travel restrictions will hurt those who are vulnerable and fleeing persecution. Lauren?
Correspondent Wyatt Goolsby reporting from the White House. Thank you, Wyatt. Jared Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law and senior White House advisor, used a private email account to talk to White House officials. That's according to Kushner's lawyer, who says less than 100 emails were sent from January to August. The lawyer said any non-personal emails were forwarded to Kushner's official account and preserved, as required by federal law. The NFL responded Sunday after President Trump tweeted repeated calls to punish players who protest on the football field during the national anthem. Some NFL players and coaches stood with linked arms, knelt, or didn't take the field at all during the anthem. The protest took place at more than a dozen NFL games Sunday. The league commissioner Several team owners and athletes have spoken out against the president's remarks. On Twitter, the president wrote, "The issue of kneeling has nothing to do with race. It is about respect for our country, flag, and national anthem. NFL must respect this." Tonight, the Obamacare replacement bill is close to defeat again, despite a last push by Republicans to keep it alive. Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi reports.
Lauren, it has calmed down. It was very tense earlier outside the hearing room for the Republican bill that would dismantle Obamacare and defund Planned Parenthood. You can see a fleet of people with disabilities coming out here saying it's not just their health care that's on the line, but their lives. That's why they started camping outside the Capitol early before sunrise. Protesters interrupt the health care hearing before it could even start.
Okay, the committee is in recess. The committee will be in recess until we get order.
Lining up 7 hours early, snaking through not just one Senate building, but two.
You can't win a big battle against the special interests on an empty stomach.
The Senate Finance Committee's top Democrat rewards activists for trying to save Obamacare. Something this mother says is a lifesaver. Her son Joshua dreams of his future.
I'm thinking about trying to get into engineering.
But he faces a future of treatments for a serious heart defect.
If something happens to my job and I don't have coverage for him through my job and we lose it, then we're done. We don't have coverage for him. That's life and death.
Republicans' last-ditch health care plan would keep many of the Obamacare taxes, but send that money back to the states.
And my goal is to get the money and power out of Washington closer to where people live so they'll have a voice about the most important thing in their life.
Senator Rick Santorum, who is here today, says what happened in this hallway now, it's empty and calm, but what he said was it was hysterical. The Republican health care bill does offer pro-life protections. It stops states from spending the block grant cash on abortions, and for 1 year it would also defund Planned Parenthood. Lauren?
Is this health care bill going to come to a vote?
It's very, very close. There's been a number of Republicans who say they're opposed to it. Only takes 3 Republicans for this bill to die. So right now the lobbying is very, very intense here at the Capitol to get those needed votes, Lauren.
Correspondent Jason Calvi on Capitol Hill. Thank you, Jason. Joining us now is Bob Cusack, editor-in-chief for The Hill. Always great to have you with us.
Hey, Lauren.
What do you think? Will this ever come to a vote?
I don't think so. They don't have the votes. It was very embarrassing last time when John McCain cast that deciding vote that killed it. Now McCain has come out against the bill. Rand Paul is against the bill. Senator Collins is leaning no. There are a couple others like Lisa Murkowski undecided. So they are not at 50. And why vote on something if it's just going to fail? But remember, the deadline is Saturday. They have to do this week.
And why?
Because of budget reconciliation rules. Otherwise, they would need 60 votes in the Senate, which, of course, they don't have. They don't even have 50 right now. So they've got to do it this week if they're going to do it.
How are Republicans going to recover from another loss on health care if this doesn't go forward?
I think they've got to pivot to tax reform and tax cuts, and they are making progress in that area, but still a long way to go. And that's what I think Mitch McConnell has wanted to do for weeks. But then this bill got close to 50, so he had to at least make the push. But I think they go to tax cuts very, very quickly.
Will they have a better shot at tax reform? It seems like they're pretty divided on most things here.
They are divided, though I think the fact that they have not gotten major legislation through may help them unify, knowing that we've got to get something done to show the voters when we go to the polls, and midterms are next year. And right now, other than getting Neil Gorsuch on the high court, which was big, they don't have big legislative accomplishments.
Let's move on to the travel ban. We just saw that there are 2 new countries added. Why does the president feel the need to do that right now, do you think?
Well, he had to do it because his prior one was expiring on Sunday. So now they've tinkered with it, took 1 country off, they've added a few, they've revised it. But this is very important to the president. But still, who is going to decide this? The Supreme Court's going to decide whether this is legal. The legal fights will continue, and they had hearings that they were going to hear arguments in October. They've canceled those for now, but the Supreme Court looks like it's still going to take this up.
And I think that would be, in the meantime, we still do have this ban in place. Isn't that right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Also today, President Trump, or yesterday, had sent out some really tough tweets to the NFL, and we watched as they, yesterday on Sunday, anybody who was watching football saw it.
Yep.
People not showing up, people kneeling, people in arms, not putting their hands on their hearts. What is the president's message? Is it effective?
Well, I certainly think he thinks it is, and polls show that most people don't support players taking a knee during the national anthem. This certainly plays to his base, but also some independence, which he's lost since he defeated Hillary Clinton. So, Lauren, this sports season keeps going, and the NBA is now about to start soon, and NBA players, including LeBron James, were criticizing the president.
Called him a bum.
Oh, yeah.
On Twitter.
Sports in politics is a hot beat right now, and it's going to continue.
Thank you so much, Bob Cusack, editor-in-chief for The Hill.
Thanks, Lauren.
Former Representative Anthony Weiner is sentenced today to 21 months in prison for sexting with a 15-year-old girl. He must report to prison by November 6th. After his sentence is served, the 53-year-old must undergo internet monitoring and cannot have contact with the girl. Weiner also must enroll in a sex offender treatment program. A church usher is being hailed a hero for stopping a masked gunman inside a Tennessee church.
He's the hero. He's the person that stopped this madness.
We heard 3 gunshots, and we thought they were firecrackers and stuff. And then we shut the door, and somebody said, "Get down, get down."
The shooter killed 1 person and wounded 7 others in the parking lot and inside the Burnett Chapel Church of Christ in Antioch, Tennessee. Witnesses say an usher confronted and disabled the gunman, who was arrested. The suspect, Emmanuel Sampson, is now charged with felony homicide. The European Union ramps up pressure on Britain at a new round of Brexit talks. The EU ruled out broadening the negotiations anytime soon and warned time is running out for Prime Minister Theresa May to clinch a deal. Britain is due to leave the bloc on March 29, 2019, but a deal must be sealed by next October to leave time for Parliament to endorse it. Cheers for German Chancellor Angela Merkel. She won yesterday's election for a 4th term. She will be weakened in her authority, however. Her party lost seats. She'll now need the support of other parties to pass legislation. Dozens of Catholic theologians and scholars from around the world have written to Pope Francis accusing him of causing theological errors. They use a mechanism known as filial correction, which hasn't been used since the Middle Ages. This group is demanding the pontiff clarify parts of Amoris Laetitia, or the Joy of Love. It's the document he issued last year on marriage and family life. The letter begins, quote, "With profound grief, but moved by fidelity to our Lord Jesus Christ, by love for the Church and for the papacy, and by filial devotion toward yourself, we are compelled to address a correction to your holiness." Juliet Lindley is EWTN News Nightly's Vatican correspondent. She joins us from Rome. Juliet, what is the problem, according to these scholars? What are they asking for?
Okay, these 60-plus scholars, lay people as well as clergymen, are asking for corrections to the alleged mistakes that they say the pontiff made in Amoris Laetitia. They're asking for clarification. Now, the scholars say that the document is causing confusion, particularly on the issue of divorced Catholics who remarry civilly. Now, the document would appear to open a possible pastoral path that could potentially allow such Catholics to receive communion. Now, as we know, if you have divorced and you're Catholic and you have not had your marriage annulled and you choose to remarry civilly, you are committing adultery and therefore you cannot receive Holy Communion. So now the scholars say we need clarification on this. It's too confusing.
What is the position of the Holy See? Can we expect a reaction to this letter from the Vatican?
The Vatican has not responded, and it hasn't responded in the past to previous initiatives asking for clarification on Amoris Laetitia. This is indeed the 6th. So no reaction and none expected possibly in the near future.
Juliet, this isn't the first letter to the Holy Father expressing concern. Can you give us some background?
Yes, just after Amoris Laetitia came out, 4 cardinals wrote a letter with a number of questions on certain issues, and they were referred to as dubia and the dubia cardinals. There was no response from the Pope, and indeed it cannot be denied that there is a certain undercurrent of concern amongst Catholics who are conservatives, but there has been no reaction from the Vatican.
Okay, thank you so much, Juliet Lindley, EWTN News Nightly Vatican correspondent.
Thank you, Lauren.
Coming up, Catholic churches damaged in last week's strong earthquake. And seeking independence, a historic vote for Iraqi Kurds. The Archdiocese of Mexico says more than 150 Catholic churches were damaged during last week's deadly magnitude 7.1 earthquake. Many of the battered churches are in the state of Puebla, where the epicenter was located. In the city of Atzala, a child's baptism turned into tragedy when the roof of a church collapsed, killing 11 family members, including the 2-month-old. In Mexico City, people filled the pews at the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe this weekend. Cardinal Norberto Rivera celebrated Mass and remembered those killed during the quake. Mexican authorities say the death toll has reached more than 315 people, with more than half in Mexico City. Massive makeshift refugee camps are sprawling over farms and open land in southern Bangladesh. More than 430,000 Rohingya Muslims are fleeing violence in their predominantly Buddhist homeland of Myanmar. Myanmar troops have embarked on what they called clearance operations to target Rohingya insurgents. Pope Francis will visit Myanmar and Bangladesh later this fall. Polls have closed in Kurdistan as votes were cast today on a referendum supporting independence from Iraq. Kurdistan is a semi-autonomous region in northern Iraq seeking to gain full independence. The Iraqi Kurdish Prime Minister Barzani cast his ballot in what is expected to be an overwhelming yes vote. Baghdad, Russia, and Turkey, which threatened military action, are opposed to the split. A curfew is in place to protect civilians in case of violence. We are joined by Dr. Devar Nazar-Sher, who volunteers at the St. Joseph Clinic as a general practitioner. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
What are people saying today?
Well, we as Christians in Kurdistan society, we see that Kurdistan is a better place, a safer place for us. We see our fellow Christians living in Baghdad and other cities of Iraq, and we are kind of like thankful for the safety and the protection we have here. As Christians, like, we are saying yes to the independence of Kurdistan.
And do you think by saying yes that there will be ramifications, that the rest of Iraq will take issue with you? Could there potentially be a war? What are you afraid of that?
Well, yes, there's a talk about that, and everybody's afraid of that. But I don't think there will be a war in Erbil Soleimani, in Kurdistan region. But there might be problems in Kirkuk, for example, which is a shared city between Kurdistan and Iraq, and both of them want it.
Would Christians, do you think, be more safe if there was an independent Kurdistan?
I will say yes. For example, in 2014 crisis, when ISIS came and flew the Christians from the Christian villages in Nineveh district, most of them came to Kurdistan, and they are still here living and safe with protection of the Peshmerga in Kurdistan. So I'll say yes for that.
But I was there and I saw the decimated villages by ISIS. It was absolutely horrific. If there is an independent Kurdistan, how would you be able to pay to help re-establish those cities?
Well, economy of Kurdistan is not at its best right now, and it's having its problems. But they are hoping the oil industry will get better with the independency. They will make new deals with new companies. All that, it's not possible to decide from now, since we are having tension with Iran and Turkey and Iraq as well. But I think they have lots of projects, and if everything goes all right, they might pay and rebuild the cities.
What are Catholics, Chaldean Catholics, Syrian Catholics, all saying about this vote? Are there differing opinions?
Well, there are, of course, different opinions, but like, as generally I can say, most of them are with it. Some of them say it's no different than Iraq, and we prefer to stay as Iraqis. Some of them say Kurdistan is it will be only the land of Kurds, and it will not benefit us. But me personally, and I see most of the Christians are believing it is a good step for Kurdistan, for all of us Christians living in Kurdistan.
We will check back in with you tomorrow and after the vote. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Jabbar Nazar Sher from Erbil, Iraq.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
The founder of the Survivor Network of Those Abused by Priests, or SNAP, has died. Barbara Blaine died yesterday following a recent cardiac event. She founded SNAP in 1988 to work with victims of clergy abuse. She herself was abused in 8th grade. SNAP has now more than 20,000 members. Barbara Blaine was 61. Up next, Father Stanley Rother, beatified. We're inside the special Mass, bringing the priest another step closer to sainthood. And a singer's Catholic faith. Andrea Bocelli's social media post. Pope Francis said Mass for the Vatican Police Force, the Corps of Gendarmes, to mark the Corps' 201st anniversary. The Holy Father told the group, "Our Father is always ready to embrace us," and added, "Conversion is never too late for God." The Catholic Church's first U.S.-born martyr has been beatified, bringing the Oklahoma native one step closer to possible sainthood.
The Father, and the Son, and Holy Spirit.
Father Stanley Rother was declared blessed during a Mass Saturday in Oklahoma City. Father Rother was killed during Guatemala's Civil War in 1981. Choirs sang hymns in English and Spanish as thousands crowded into an Oklahoma convention center for the ceremony.
Il suo esempio eroico ci aiuti ad essere coraggiosi testimoni del Vangelo.
At the Vatican yesterday, Pope Francis praised the virtue and example of Blessed Rother during his remarks at the Angelus address. The Holy Father asked that Father Rother's heroic example help us to be courageous witnesses to the gospel. Our partners at the National Catholic Register have more on the beatification of Blessed Stanley Rother. You can read about it at ncregister.com. Opera star Andrea Bocelli has sold more than 80 million albums worldwide. Last week, this agnostic turned Catholic marveled at the beauty of the Holy Land. In a post on his Facebook page, he showed a picture of himself in Bethany visiting the site where Jesus was baptized. He says he felt the need to express his devotion where the air is filled with sacredness and the water flows with spirituality and prayer. The Italian singer's Catholic mother was advised to abort him during her pregnancy because doctors expected the child to have a disability. He was born with poor eyesight, which led to blindness, but that has not stopped him from being an incredible gift to the world. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, thank you for watching. I'm Lauren Ashburn. We'll be back tomorrow with more news from a Catholic perspective. Good night, and God bless you.